This is Suit Up Sports. Suit Up Sports. Where opinions are as sharp as a tailored suit. No fluff, no gimmicks, just unfiltered, hard-hitting takes on sports and a whole lot more. It's time to suit up. Now here's your host, DJ the Suit Stout.
Welcome to Suit Up Sports. I'm DJ the Suit Stout, along with 10-year NFL vet Frank Garcia. Frank, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing good. It's been a long time. Happy New Year. We're here in January 2026. I haven't had to write a check or anything yet. So I haven't had an opportunity to screw that up, but I'm sure it'll happen pretty soon.
Yeah, no doubt. I know you were in California for the New Year's, and I was here home watching football like you were. And you know, it's funny when you and I talked the other day about today's show. We're going to spend probably 90% of it on the Panthers versus Tampa, how bad the officiating was, worst I've ever seen, a couple calls by Canales that we both had issues with, and we'll still talk about that a little bit. But
I mean, we have to talk about that.
Definitely got to talk about it.
I have to at least get that off.
Got to vent. But then yesterday, our probably most hated rival did us a huge favor. So not only did we beat them twice this year, they just won a game to get us into the playoffs. And I don't care. You can say we backed in. You can say we have a losing record. I don't care. When you make the playoffs, that's the goal when you go to training camp every year. And could we have done a lot of things different? Yes. Did we leave a lot of meat on the bone? Yes. Did we lose games down the stretch that we should have won that would have made it a lot easier? Yes. But we're in the damn playoffs, and I'm excited. And we'll get to that game in a minute. But let's start with the Panthers versus Tampa. You know, playoffs on the line at Tampa. Mother Nature didn't do anybody any favors. It was a freaking monsoon pretty much the whole game, which made the game, I guess, even more tense when you're watching it, because every time somebody held the ball, you're worried they're going to fumble it, or if you try to do a flea flicker from the other team's 20-yard line, which I know we're going to get to in a minute.
Kick a 55-yard field goal into the wind,
into the rain. Yeah, so the rain definitely played its part in that ball game, but nothing, in my opinion, played as big of a part as the damn referees. And you and I argue about a lot of things, but one thing that I think you and I don't do is we're not two guys that use referees as an excuse. We don't. We might say awful call, or that was a drive killer, you know, whatever it was. But in this game, and not only me and you, all the national pundits that I've seen on TV or read, I mean, I heard Ocho Cinco the other day. Everyone agrees that the officiating in that football game was egregious.
We went through about a 4 or 5 year period of time where the government straight lied to our faces and told us that if you do this, then this is what's going to happen. And if you do that, they lied and they gaslit us for 5 years. I don't feel like they can do that to NFL fans and get away with it consistently more than what they just did, because that's exactly what they just did. They lied to us and told us it was something else. You're never going to convince me that the NFL, and maybe you could have before, but I am more sold now that Vegas is involved with the NFL than I ever have been. And I'm kind of a conspiracy theorist. I want some logic. I want some rational decisions. I want things to make sense. I want to try to put dots together. But when you look at a game and they are blatantly lying to you and telling you that this is black when you know it's white, when this is out of bounds, when you know with your own two eyes that it's completely in bounds, and they're lying to you because they don't want to, make it seem like they're at fault. I'm not sure what the reasoning is, other than the obvious is which there's money involved and there's ratings involved. And when you tie in the NFL with DraftKings and with all these other these betting venues, Vegas is going to put their fingers down and say, this is the way this is going to go.
Well, the conspiracy theorists out there, and I don't go as far as you do, although after watching that game, it's really hard not to think.
That's what I'm saying. I've defended the NFL.
Yeah,
there's no way. I've been in those locker rooms where we're not talking about, I mean, we know what the spread is, we know what the lines are, but that's more for motivation than anything else.
Right.
Nobody's ever come to me and said, hey, listen, put this money, or what do you feel like on your team? we've always avoided that, and most people do. Now, you might get in touch with the one or two desperate guys that are going to do that, but for the most part, there is not that's not going on. That the game fixing like that is not going on.
Well, let's walk through the plays real quick, because the first one was the 15-yard penalty they called on Michael Jackson for taunting, where him and Baker Mayfield.
Well, didn't you know right there, and then it was going to
made you think,
here we go.
Because two guys getting each other's face and yelling at each other happens on every freaking play. You were an offensive lineman. I bet you not,
especially against guys that are going to give it back.
Right. And
Baker Mayfield is a fiery guy.
No doubt.
Favre was a fiery guy.
No doubt.
Aaron Rodgers is a fiery guy. When you sack him, when you get him down in a big moment, his competitiveness is going to take over.
Yep.
Baker Mayfield is as competitive as anybody that you're going to find in the NFL. When he jumps up and gets in your face, you're going to fire back.
Of course.
That's what you do on the gridiron when you have masks and helmets on to protect you.
Right. And there was no punches. It was just two dudes face to face mask.
There wasn't a spit.
No spitting.
There wasn't a verbal.
It happens damn near every play in the NFL. So when they called that, first of all, you're like, all right.
When I jumped up and looked at guys, when I knock a guy down, they're going to jump up. When I jumped up, I looked up at him and I said, damn it.
I'm going to be here all day.
I'm going to be here all day.
Yeah.
Right. Baker Mayfield just happened to be eye to eye with that. That was the difference.
Right. And you see guys especially on the lines, you see guys after plays pushing and shoving. These guys just got in each other's face. So at worst, it should have been on both teams and negated.
When I grab somebody and I'm holding them, I'm going to hold them just a little longer.
Oh, yeah.
You know why? Because I'm going to let you know I'm here.
I'm here.
Hold you.
I'm
here.
here.
What that guy's going to do? He's going to try to knock my hand off.
Yep.
And I'm going to grab it back
again. Yeah.
You're not knocking my hand off. And then you know what I'm going to do?
Got some pretty good grip there. You might have a couple years left.
I'm going to shove them.
Push them off.
I'm going to give a little shove just to let them know that, I got you.
It's two fiery guys. And so to me, that should have been a no call. But if you're going to call anything, it should be on both guys. It negates itself, and let's move on. That's two fiery guys in basically a playoff football game going after each other. That was a crazy bull crap.
It was the start of what was to come.
Well, no doubt. Then we'll move on, and I'm not sure I'll get these in exact order.
Chronological order, right?
But you'll get the point. We had the backwards pass where the ref said it went out of bounds. They were also supposed to let us have an opportunity to decide whether to redo. And Canales came out yesterday and said they never even gave us the option. And him having to call the next play in while we're going, they didn't even give him the option to do that, which I still give Canales a little fault on that, because I would think as a head coach, you should know the rule to say, whoa.
When coaches and things are going so fast, and you may not know all the rules,
especially when you're the offensive coordinator,
offensive coordinator, or there should be a guy on your team to say, hey, listen, we want to review that. There's always a eye in the sky that's kind of helping out with those decisions.
Yep.
That's not worth it. Yes, maybe we should check this out, or this is the time to do it. It's a big moment. We know that we might not have got it, but we have 3 timeouts and they got the ball. If we don't, then this is our best shot.
Yep.
We need to call timeout, and we need to let them know that we want this reviewed. Canales could have very easily done that in that moment. That was a 8-yard loss, 7-yard loss on first down with a lot of momentum, and the way that went. Yeah, so Canales gets a little bit of blame for not having the wherewithal or the experience to say,
right,
slow things down. This moment isn't too big.
We should have a choice.
Let's call timeout and let's talk about this.
Yeah.
This is not a timeout for my team. This is a timeout for the officiating.
Right.
And a lot of times I've seen those timeouts, when you're having those conversations, they go to a replay and you get your timeout back.
Or the refs huddle and go, you know what, you're right. No charge, timeout to the Panthers, and they're replaying. Exactly.
But in this situation, not only, I knew it was a backwards pass. When I looked at it, it's like, oh, I'm watching on the plane, right? And I'm looking and say, oh, that's a backward pass. Please pick that up, Dowdle. Please pick that up.
Yeah.
So because you always want to hand the ball as an offensive player, especially in today's day and age, with the way that they have the replays and they let plays run, and you always want to give it back to the official. Mm-hmm. Make sure that you have the ball and you hand it back to the official. You never want it on the ground for somebody else. You don't take a chance.
Yep.
So when that ball went backwards and bounced, thankfully it bounced into Dowdle's hand, because he was going to just leave it there.
Yeah.
If it not had bounced, everybody on the field turned away
because the whistle blew.
Because the whistle blew from the guy on the sideline that was coming in, signaling dead ball. That's what that means. When that happens, everybody stops, because if you don't, guess what? You get a penalty.
Right.
You get a penalty for playing after the whistle. We're all taught to play to the whistle. Whistle blows, we stop. Because of that, what should have happened, if the play should have been alive, it should have been an inadvertent whistle, loss of down. Sorry, Panthers. Even though you had a 50-yard gain, right? We're going to have to bring this back because the whistle blew. That should work both ways. Even if you have a 10-yard loss, inadvertent whistle, it helps me out in this time. I get it 2nd and 10. On top of that, they lied straight to our faces.
Said it went out of bounds. So the ball went out of bounds.
The explanation was a dead ball went out of bounds. The ball was 10 yards away from the sideline. Now, because of not just the fact that you don't handle this properly, you lied to me. And you lied to America, which we see where we had to rewind. Did that go out of bounds? Where did that ball hit the ground? Where did it touch? It didn't come anywhere near that.
Not even close. So
how is that the explanation that you're going to give to America when you get on the microphone, when you should have things buttoned up? You have the ability to review it. You have the ability with New York to sit there and get it right, and you still can't get it right. And on top of that, the game's fixed.
And now it's 2nd and 16.
The game 2nd and 17.
17. We were driving. Then let's fast forward to a great pass and catch with Tet McMillan and Bryce. Tet takes some heat for not being able to get off the block on man-to-man. He does. He gets physical. Great play, great throw, 40-yard gain, offensive pass interference. Chris Carter, Hall of Fame receiver, says the worst pass interference call he's ever seen. Ocho Cinco, worst pass. Everyone says that happens every play. It was absolutely atrocious.
By the rule, I'm even less offended by that than the one that I just explained, where they lied to us, right? Because it's like questioning balls and strikes, right? You have a window in which you can jam and touch, and usually it's like a 1 to 2 yard window where you can contact and use your body to get off of a jam, right? They're going to be physical. You can be physical. It's a line of scrimmage in between that area. Whether it was 2 yards or 3 yards, I don't know. I wasn't on the field. That's what they deemed it, right? And it's a simple, swim, club, swim, get through the jam, just like a defensive line would do with an offensive lineman. Happens every play in man-to-man coverage, every single play. Because the guy lost his footing is not Tet's fault. Tet decided to be physical, which they've tried to teach him how to do, so he can get open on those one-on-ones, because that's what teams have done. So he's gotten better at that. He breaks down the sideline. Bryce finds some time, sees him open, hits the play, and they call it pass interference.
40-yard completion.
The biggest momentum-changing play of the game.
Because so if that play stands, even if we go 3 and out, we get a field goal, an easy field goal.
That was a
huge difference in the game.
It was a huge, because I believe they scored on that next drive.
I think so.
So that was a huge momentum-changing play. It was a huge play for points. It was huge for everything. That's right then and there. You can go back to that time and that moment in time and say the Panthers were moving. They had momentum. They started to insert their will a little bit on the Bucks. Things were starting to go the way. You could see guys puffing up and making plays. That just took the air right out of the sails, and you had to go back and do it again. And you ended up punting. They ended up scoring.
And then to make that pass interference call even look worse, Cade Otton trips himself running down the sideline, and they call a pass interference on the Panthers again. So
he hit the DB.
Yeah, they got his tangled up, but then he tripped himself.
His heel hit as they were running, which happens all the time. Right? Incidental contact happens all the time when two guys are running and looking for a ball. They'll never call that. Until then.
Until then.
Guy is running down. He clips the DB, clips his own ankles, trips and falls. The DB is yards away from him. He's like, what just happened to you? And all of a sudden there's a crash, and the next thing you see is a flag. The problem I have with every one of these calls that we just talked about, They were all huge in momentum,
No doubt,
for drive saving plays, scoring opportunities, which are impossible almost when you're talking about the difference between winning and losing games, 1 or 2 plays. Those are 3 plays right there that we just talked about that changed the entire momentum of the game.
no doubt.
That allowed Tampa to at least be in it with an opportunity and ultimately win it.
Yeah, and with that being said, the Panthers still lost by 2 points, and then we do, Canales. I thought the Panthers, they got off to a slow start, but the first game when we beat Tampa, they went down, scored a touchdown, so that was nothing new. But we played solid. Defense figured it out and got better as the game went on. However, there were a couple things that the Panthers did that shot themselves in the foot. First one was trying to flea flicker on first down. I think it was first down on the 20 or so yard line going in to score, at least in field goal range. In the rain, Dowdle slips, tries to throw the ball back to Bryce. Tampa recovers the football. And then you mentioned earlier the field goal. We tried a 53-yard field goal in the rain on a soggy field. That made no sense to me. So the Panthers certainly inflicted some of this pain on themselves. However, when you've got the officiating crew inserting themselves in the game 4 times at least, it's really hard to overcome that, especially when you make a couple mistakes on your own.
I'm in agreement with you when it comes to officiating, and probably most people in Canales. You never want to use the referees as an excuse of why you lost. But in this case, it's damn near impossible because I just told you those 3 plays were like turnovers.
They were huge.
Those 3 plays were basically turnovers. And when you turn the ball over like that against really good teams where you're equal, you're going to put yourself against the 8 ball. The Panthers still had an opportunity, but they didn't help themselves, like you just said out. And that's where that's where I look at. I don't necessarily say, I guess if there is the blame that I'm going to put on a head coach in Canales because he overrides or he's the ones making those calls. When you have experience coaching, playing, being around the game long enough, right? And the reason why you look and you study and you have people on your staff potentially that are advising you as the game is going on because they've been in these types of situations and the moment isn't going to be too big for them. Right? It's the reason why teams that have been in championships that have been there, the game will start happening a little bit faster for them sooner than it is when you've never been there, because now it's the bright lights and you're looking, everything's going to happen a lot faster and there's so much going on, so many distractions. It takes them a little while to get their feet wet into the game, right? Where if you've been there, Canales is green. Right? Yeah. He's green as can be. And because he's green, he's going to not understand maybe some of those types of moments in plays, those situations where it's going to be different. Playoff football is already going to be faster. Mm-hmm. When you're playing in the rain, you can't see. Things are going to happen. The ball's going to, there's other overriding factors that are going to, and all coaches want to say, well, we need to prepare like it's going to be. Yeah, it's easy to say those things, but it's harder to replicate those things. Mm-hmm. It's the reason why on practices you have all the sound systems, because when you go on the road, it's harder to communicate. So you try to mimic that. It's almost impossible to mimic a wet ball that's going to be feel like a medicine ball with a field that you're not used to in conditions that are wet, and you're trying to do things that you normally don't do and operate in a normal way, which you normally wouldn't have those situations involved with. And that's a wet field running a flea flicker with a wet ball when you're playing a faster team and trying to execute that at full speed. Yeah. You can't prepare for those types of moments. And those are things that you would love to run, but sometimes you just can't. Yeah. Right? Because it's too rainy. The wind might be too big. It might be whatever is circumstance or situation, it's too cold. Those things factor into those decisions. Slipping. Yeah, which we saw quite a bit. Those things factor into those decisions. Mm-hmm. The field is not a great condition. I can't be running a stop and go because I can't stop. Yeah. Right? So those types of situations you have to take into consideration when calling those plays. And I just don't think Canales was ready for that yet. Hopefully he learns from that. Yeah. But it once again goes back to, him reacting versus going out to be proactive.
Right.
He's reactive, not proactive.
Right.
I made this comment to you the other day, and it's really kind of, an analogy that, it makes a lot of sense, I think, to a lot of people. When you look at the most notorious criminals in the world, what were they? They were masterminds. They were the forward thinkers. They thought about things that nobody else thought about, right? They were able to go out there and devise plans so that the cops wouldn't be there waiting for them. Canales is the guy that copies those plans, and the cops are always out there at the end of it saying, gotcha, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, damn, you got me again, right? He's always a step behind following somebody else's blueprint. There's no forward thinking in the way that we call things, and I think that has a lot to do with the inexperience that he has, and maybe needs some more experience on that staff.
Yeah, and I agree. And look, we've talked about Canales a lot this year, and there's been games where we've given him praise. There's been games where we've questioned him. But the one thing that we both have been consistent with is he is in his second year as a head coach. So he's learning on the job. He's also calling the plays on the job while being the head coach.
I love the fact that he wanted to take the risk of running a flea flicker, and a lot of people are going to complain it was a 20-yard line. I don't know how the play was designed, because it blew up so quickly with Rico slipping, or with Dowdle slipping. You had a safety that was shooting the box, and I'm assuming that was the key that they were looking for, is that safety firing and hopefully tackling Dowdle as he throws the ball to back to Bryce, and having the tight end or whoever it is, release down the field to be wide open.
Yeah.
But we never know, because everything got blown up with the slippage, and then the timing got thrown off. And that guy, if Bryce would have caught that ball or fallen on the ball, that guy would have decapitated.
Yeah,
Bryce.
I mean, he even if the pitch would have been successful, it didn't look like Bryce was going to have hardly any time to even get rid of it. So that was obviously a big play in that game. I thought Bryce played well, 24 for 35, 266 yards, 2 touchdowns. He did have a bad interception. But what really worries me about the Panthers, and we'll kind of transition into this game against the Rams, what really worries me, especially over the last 3 games, maybe 4, when the Panthers, if I said to you, when the Panthers won those 3 games in a row, when the Panthers, won at Green Bay, the one thing that I would say, Frank, what was the one thing they did really well?
They controlled the line of scrimmage, and they ran the ball.
They ran the ball. Well, in this game, Dowdle had 7 rushes for 10 yards, Chuba 5 for 10 yards. We couldn't run the ball, and we haven't been able to run the ball in the past few weeks, which has resulted in losses. And so that worries me, because we all agree that we're not at our best when Bryce has to throw the ball 25, 30, 35 times. Bryce is at his best, like the first time when we beat the Rams, when Dowdle had, 18 for 58, Chuba had 83 yards rushing, and Bryce was 15 for 20 for 208 and 3 touchdowns. That is the formula. Now, we know that there's going to be games where Bryce is going to have to throw the ball more, and Tampa, this was one of them, and he had a solid game, but that worries me going against the Rams, because the Rams team that we saw in game 1 is going to be a lot different than this Rams team. We all agree that they've got one of the best young defensive lines in football. They've got defensive ends that get after it. They've got a solid secondary. Right now, we took advantage of their secondary in the first game. You're talking
about the Rams defense right now specifically.
Yeah, some of the Rams. So, even though the Rams had lost a couple in a row before they beat Arizona yesterday, and even with Arizona going into that fourth quarter, that was a 1-score game. So we're thinking, okay, come on, Arizona, I'd rather play the 49ers. And then Stafford and the Rams decided to turn it on, and they got their rhythm going at home. But for the Panthers, and we can dive into this now, for the Panthers to win this game, it's almost, in my opinion, going to have to be a perfect game. And if you look at what we did against the Rams game 1, when we won 31-28, Stafford threw 2 interceptions. One was a pick 6, and one was in the end zone. He had a fumble that Derek Brown knocked out, so he had 3 turnovers just himself. He still threw for 242 yards, I believe, and 2 touchdowns. But the 2 interceptions and the fumble were the difference in the game. Bryce was able to throw, like I said, 15 for 20. He was
efficient. He managed the game.
It
wasn't spectacular.
He was 2 for 2 on 4th downs for 87 yards and 2 touchdowns, which again, that's rare.
Anomaly.
So my point is, I think the first game, the Panthers played about as well as they're going to play and got the turnovers that were huge. So
everything went right.
That's going to have to happen again. And
what's the chance of lightning striking twice?
Right. And
that's the question, right?
Right.
And that's the reason why we are 10-point underdogs.
Correct.
Going into this game at home.
Yep.
And I know a lot of people are going to say, well, we beat them the first time. You have to understand, like you're pointing out, how the game played out.
Yeah.
Right. The momentum changing plays, the things that don't happen. Now, can those things happen again? Yes.
Yep.
Lightning can strike twice.
Hey, look, the crowd is going to be, it was loud the first time against the Rams. This is going to be, and you've played in playoff games at that stadium, it's going to be really loud. One thing about this Panther fan base, when they bring it, they bring it. So coming from the West Coast, playing at 4:30 actually helps the Rams because it's not as early in the morning as it would have been if they played at 1.
It would have been 10 o'clock game. Right?
Yep, but it's going to be very loud. But this is also when we're talking about Canales and lack of experience. The majority of the Panthers football team hasn't played in the playoffs before. We've got 11 rookies, I believe, that are on the squad as well. And then you've got Sean McVay and a coaching staff over there
who was a game away from being in the NFC Championship
and have won a Super Bowl
and with a Super Bowl.
If you took a poll, everyone would put that coaching staff in the probably top 3 to 5 in the NFL. They've got the experience. They've been in this situation. Last year, like the game you're referring to, is when they had Philadelphia on the ropes last year in Philly. So this team has been there and done it. They've got a quarterback who's probably going to be the MVP. If not, he's going to be in second place, but he'll be first or second. 43 touchdowns.
Yes, incredible.
Through 5 against Seattle at Seattle when the Panthers couldn't get a damn yard against Seattle. So we are Devontae Adams, who's been out the last 2 weeks, is going to be back.
That's a big key.
And he had 2 touchdowns against us the first game. So
Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams combined with their running game and Matt Stafford, who can sling it. I hate to be the gloom and doom, but it spells disaster for the Panthers. They're going to have a chip on their shoulder. They're going to have the experience. They have the defense to travel. The only way the Panthers have an opportunity to win this game is if they control the line of scrimmage and run the football. As you just said.
Yep.
But in order to do that, they have to match their personnel with their running style. And I can tell you this, and there's really no way for me to prove this other than my years of experience and having played the position and having run behind multiple different types, blocked for multiple different types of backs running behind me. The timing of a play matters.
Yeah.
And you have to have the style of the back match up the timing of the play, right? Certain running backs run different plays better than others.
Mm-hmm.
Certain running backs are built for running different plays better than others. For example, Chuba Hubbard is a stretch read guy. He's going to be like when the Denver Broncos would run their stretch plays. Everybody would zone. He's a full head of steam, 100 miles an hour, doesn't know how to slow down and have patience and go.
Yeah.
Right. He's 100. Right.
Yeah.
It's just like, I'm going to get to the edge at faster than anybody else and don't care about my blocking. And you better be there ready. So that's a different type of blocking than patience. Le'Veon Bell was a perfect example. When he ran for the Steelers, he would run tall, but he would stand in the hole. You're like, where is he at? And then boom, he'd find that.
He'd let the play develop.
He'd work for the double team, and then he was big enough to be able to hit that hole. He didn't have the breakaway speed that some of these other backs do, but he would find the hole and let it develop. He'd ride the wave. He'd ride the double.
Yeah.
He'd wait behind it. He'd have patience, and that's Rico Dowdle, right? That's where he has more of a better opportunity to run those north and south. But if the Panthers are going to want to win this game, he is going to have to be the guy that steps up and runs those plays. You can't give Chuba the same type of carries that you give Rico because the holes aren't going to be there.
Well, but let me ask you this. First of all, we hope Robert Hunt comes back this week. That will be a huge addition if we insert him back at guard because he's a beast. And me and you both love the guy. So we're hoping he's back. That will help for the running game. But in game 1 against the Rams, and I don't know if this was a fluke. I don't know if this leads to what you're talking about as far as our running style against the kind of defense they play. But, Chuba did have 17 rushes for 83 yards, Dowdle 18 rushes for 58 yards. So it appears, at least on paper, that Chuba's running style did seem to do better.
He's going to have more of the opportunities to break the big plays.
Right.
There's no doubt about that because you have small guys missing tackles out in space versus trying to run through linebackers and safety at the heart of the defense. But the ones that wear you out, the ones that are the ones that as a coaching staff, you're like, God, they're just kicking our ass.
Yeah.
Are the ones that are north and south.
Battle.
Those are the body blows.
Yeah.
The other ones are the hooks and the jabs that stun you.
Yeah.
Right. But those body blows, those add up. And if you can continue to do those in the fourth quarter, it eats the clock. It
wears them down.
It wears them down. It muddies the game up. It gives the offense on the other side, who's explosive as all can be, less opportunities. That's the only and on top of that, you can't turn the ball over, and you have to win the special teams.
Yeah, right? And you have to win the turnover battle like we did in game one. That's crucial.
The turnover battle, I think we were like +3.
We were. They had Stafford 2 picks and a fumble.
Well, the two and the one was a pick 6.
Yep.
The other one was a pick inside the 20 where they're going
in the end zone.
It was in the end zone inside the 20 where they're going.
Yeah.
They threw
Derek Brown tipped it.
It was a tip pass.
Yep.
It wasn't a bad. It was a tip pass that was intercepted. Big play.
Yep.
And the other one was a sack fumble, or he was rolling out and got
Derek Brown knocked it out, and we recovered it.
Derek Brown knocked it out, and they recovered it. Got to seal the game.
Yep.
Those 3 plays were incredibly. I mean, like 14-point swings, right? So, and on top of that, they still had a chance to win. So,
we won 31-28. The Panthers, even when the Panthers win, minus the one game against the Falcons, it's a nail biter. And it was ironic that yesterday, when we're watching the Saints Falcon game, it was almost like watching a Panther game.
Yeah.
Because you never felt safe. At the end of the game, when the Saints get the ball back before the interception, they're going to score and win by a point. It was like watching a Panther game.
Right.
And it was. Panthers just can't have anything easy. We can't have anything easy. And guess what? If we win, damn well it's going to be close. It's not going to be easy unless the Rams come in here and have an epic collapse, which I don't see that happening.
Say this, after watching what we just saw, what we just witnessed in Tampa, the Panthers nationally this year, they've had juice before with Cam Newton, with Luke Kuechly, with Jonathan Stewart. When you have Ted Ginn, Steve, when you have your playmakers around you, you got juice.
Yeah.
Right. When Cam Newton's doing the dab and everybody in the country is doing the dab and tearing his chest open, running the Superman, the ratings are going to suggest that the Panthers should win because everybody's going to be watching it. We're the number 1 fan base in the country when he was doing that.
Yeah.
We had more people on all the social media apps. I remember I was in radio, so were you, doing and monitoring these things, right? That's not this Panthers team.
Right, yeah.
That's not this Panthers team. There's no juice with this Panthers team. Nobody cares about Bryce Young. Nobody knows Ted McMillan. Nobody cares about Derek Brown. Nobody knows who our running back. How do you say that? Dowdle, right?
Yeah.
We don't even barely know how to say it. I'm kidding. But, I mean, Ryko. You listen to these announcers stroke. We don't have any juice. The Rams have all the juice. And after watching what we saw against Tampa, you got to believe that Vegas is going to be on side of who? The Rams.
And the spread, like you said, is Rams -10. And another interesting thing for this game being at 4:30, temperature in Charlotte's can be around 65. There's a 60% chance of rain. And most of the rain, it looks as if, is going to be during the day, probably ending at game time or at least so maybe
we play on a turf field.
True.
We're not playing in Tampa where there's grass and your footing is going to slip out.
But still, if it's raining during the game, I don't know what Matt Stafford's stats in his career in the rain. But Bryce, I know before the Tampa game, they talked about how he's been a good thrower of the ball in the rain, and he threw it well again last week. So, that might benefit him a little bit. And again, I'm just looking for silver linings because I think, like everyone else, we think that this game is definitely a tall task.
How do we
win
this game? Is what you're asking?
Got to run the ball.
You have to run the ball, DJ.
Yeah.
You have
got
to
keep them off the field.
You can't turn the ball over. And then you have to hope that they do, because this offense is manufacturing points at a rate that, that not many other teams have ever done. I mean, 44 touchdowns, 43 touchdowns.
Yeah, 43 touchdown passes.
I mean, that seals, for a lot of the voters' eyes, the MVP, right? That number right there and what they've done. On top of that, you have a young defense. When you play in the NFL and you go on the road in playoffs, you better have a running game and you be able to pack your defense. The Rams can play defense with anybody.
And in the first game, the Rams ran for 153 yards against the Panthers. Now, Corum, their backup running back, had a long run to account for a lot of that.
Those all count.
But they count. So, and I'll tell you, Latham Ransom, the rookie safety for the Panthers, had a memorable game in that game because he lit up Kyron Williams a couple times, hard hits, and Williams limped off the field. So we laid the lumber on him a little bit. So they're going to have to be physical as hell, like they were that game. But
do you trust Canales to put you in position to make the right calls in this game.
Well, here's my thing that
I don't.
Well, I think we talked about it earlier. I think that he's learning on the job, and you certainly, if you're comparing coaching staffs,
he's following the guy that's paved the path for what he's trying to do.
Well, and look, he's learning on the go, and we hope that eventually he becomes the mastermind criminal, not the guy that ends up and the cops are waiting for it.
Got me again.
Because he does. I've said this all year. A lot of times I feel like he's coaching like we have a 10-point lead when we don't. And so, but I give him the fact that he is learning on the job. But here's what I've said to a lot of people who, we shouldn't even be in the playoffs. I'd rather have a higher draft pick, blah, 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 blah. Here's what I believe. I think that, and let me finish before you go, because I think you're going to agree with most of it, but here's what I believe. I believe that the Panthers are arriving early to their ultimate destination. None of us realistically thought they would be in the playoffs this year. We thought maybe they'd get in there, but we also all knew that we have holes everywhere. We have no linebackers. We have one receiver really that we would start on probably any other team would be Tet. No one else would start on. And we all like Coker, and he had 74 yards against the Rams the first game, but Leggett is a bust. And so when you look at this team, we knew there was a lot of holes to fill. When Dan Morgan took over, we knew that the offensive line was the worst in the NFL. He addressed it, fixed it. Last year, we had the worst defense in the history of the NFL. This year, not that they're lights out, but they're definitely better than they were last year. We're moving in the right direction. So to me, as we build the team that we all want to have that doesn't back into the playoffs, that wins 12 games like the Rams win, you have to go through this building process. And getting into a playoff game, to me, and the experience that they're going to have from what you said earlier, having the big lights on them, having the whole nation watching at 4:30, you're the only game in the NFL. Just getting that experience, not only as a player, but as a coach, to me, is something that will bode well for them as they move forward and continue to plug those holes. I'd much rather do that than to have them sitting at home on their asses and doing mock drafts on ESPN. So to me, regardless of what the results are of this game, the fact that they're in a playoff game is very bodes well for the game plan that Dan Morgan has in place, that Dave Canales has in place. Now, if we get our asses whooped, I'm sure I'm going to be as angry as anybody. I'm going to be picking holes in this and this and this, like any fan's going to do. But I think it's important to not lose sight of the fact that. So
you really think they have a chance to win?
No, I'm taking the Rams -10. I'll give you the pick right now. Like I think that the Rams could be the best team in the NFL. I mean, I really do. They have all the weapons. They have all the weapons, and they have a great coach.
They are built to win a championship.
Yeah,
they are ready to win a championship. Now, whether they play well enough to do that, Stafford has to outplay, Jalen Hurts. Their offense, there's a lot of things that factor into that, right? On those given days,
they're going to have to do it on the road most likely.
And I think for me, as a realistic Panther fan, I hear what you're saying, and I think you're right. There is some value for some of these players, especially the young ones, to experience playoff football. They're not ready to win. They're not ready to even be here, right? But
we arrived early.
Yeah. Right. And you can look at the positives of those things and say that's going to help some of these. Even Bryce, this is going to be his first time.
Yeah.
We become the first team in history to go to the playoffs and host a playoff game with a losing record.
Twice.
Yeah,
twice.
I mean, we're the first team to do that.
Yep.
But all those things being said, there are going to be some things. It's like when you have a practice and the defense kicks the offense's ass and you're self-evaluating your team, there's going to be some good things to talk about. And there's going to be some bad things to talk about. The coach is in a perfect situation because he's going to praise the defense. You just won. You can't. And the offense, we got to get better. And then we got to challenge. We got to compete. Well, that's going to be the same type of thing here. Canales has an opportunity with this team to say, hey, listen, there's some good, we still need to improve in these areas. Dan Morgan is going to see this is what playoff football teams are constructed like. This is what our goal is. We can have this player who's helping, this player who's helping towards the cause, and we have these players that really aren't adding to the cause. They're more hurting. Xavier Leggett. We have to figure out what to do with him because he's not helping, he's hurting. Players that are just hanging on by the roster, you can probably have, there's too many of them for the
well, the holes that we know they have, if the Panthers lose Saturday, and I think most people believe that they will, the holes that we have are going to get exploited even more because Sean McVay, you don't think he knows that our linebackers struggle covering tight ends, and they've got 2 good tight ends. You don't think that he knows that we get no pass rush and that Stafford's probably going to have a lot of time to zing the ball down the field? Of course. So, the holes that we know that they have, that Dan Morgan and Canales know they have, are going to get exploited even more. So you're right. So I think that I just think it's part of the building blocks for getting this team where we want them to be. And we're another good offseason away from probably being a pretty damn good team. Now you can look at our division and say Falcons defense looks like they've got 5 young rookies on there that are playing great. And you can look at Tampa and say, okay, they're the old guard. They had a bad year. We'll see what happens with them. And then you look at the Saints, they got a damn quarterback. Shucks a quarterback. We're going to have to deal with that kid for probably 7 to 10 more years, although he's 27 years old, so maybe not as long. But the other thing that I think that's important when you look at the Panthers, and again, I'm looking in the future, right? Regardless of the results of this game, they have the most salary cap coming this year than any team in the NFC South. They're 15th in the NFL in salary cap, and that's before they do any restructures or cuts or things like that. So they're in a good spot from a salary cap standpoint. Brent Tillis has done a great job coming in from Kansas City. And then they've got their draft choices. And, Dan Morgan this past year appears to have nailed the draft. The first year, we did not nail it. Xavier Legette looks like a bust. I hope I'm wrong. I hope maybe another offseason, but he's shown us nothing to make him
you believe you're wrong.
I think I'm right,
Man
but
can't line up.
I hope I'm
sides.
wrong. Right. I hope I'm wrong, but he's shown me no reason to believe I'm not. And maybe David Moore comes back this week as well, which hopefully would get him in and take a lot of those reps from Legette. He's at least a dependable receiver. But my point is the team is in position to have, if they have another good offseason, they've got the money, they've got the draft choices to fill the holes that they need to fill. And if Dan Morgan fills those holes, and I think so far in Dan's, 2.5 years, he's been pretty damn good. Like I said, he fixed the offensive line. The defense this year is a lot better than they were, which it was hard not to be.
I think the offensive line is, minus a guy like Moten, you're going to have to figure out what to do with him. I think they re-upped him.
Yeah.
So he's going to be taken care of for a couple of years. You have your guards that are being paid. Your left tackles, coming under contract here shortly. What do you do with that?
They'll extend him probably.
Do you either extend him or draft a younger player that's going to be more built to be a left tackle in this league? Those are the decisions on the offensive line, but there's not much.
Right.
I mean, the offensive line.
The offensive line has been.
If you were to grade them, I'd probably give them a 7.5, 8.
Yeah, and I think
anything over a 7 is playoff football.
Yeah, and I think if I'm not mistaken, they've used 12 to 14 different offensive line combinations this year due to injury.
The offensive line coach has done a really good job.
He has
preparing not just the starters but the backups to step in when necessary to not fall off as drastically where there's holes. Right. So you give him credit for that. The offensive line, like I say, 7.5, 8. And let's use 7 as the line of demarcation for playoff teams.
Mm-hmm.
Right. 9 and 10 would be the best in the league. And, that'd be the Eagles or, teams like that.
Seattle.
Seattle. They're just going to, dominate. Right. That's not a dominant offensive line, but it's a playoff offensive line.
Yeah.
Defensive line, you have some dominant players. You have some 8s. Derek Brown's an 8. On 8.5, 9 on run stopping, probably one of the best in the league, but pass rushing is probably a 6.
5 or 6 sacks this year, which is high for him. Scorton looks like he's going to be a player, the rookie defensive end.
He's going to be an 8, 7.5, 8, right? The potential's there.
The linebackers.
Our corners, are
solid.
7.
Yeah.
Both of them are 7. Michael Jackson, to me, started off the season as a 5.5. He's a 7, 7.5.
Mm-hmm.
He's moved himself up and really played well because a lot of times they're going to target him, and he stepped up in some big games against some good receivers and made some plays. So his stock has moving up. I think the problem for me, regardless of how many, unless you have 8s and 9s everywhere, and I'm talking Luke Kuechly at linebacker, Thomas Davis at linebacker, you have a core that is just the best in the business, 8 and 9, and you have a defensive line that's an 8 and 9. You have secondaries that's 7s and 8s and 9s. The offensive line's a 7.5, 8. Running backs are 8s, right? You got everywhere. You still have a quarterback that maxes out at a 6.
Well,
and that's my biggest problem moving forward with the future of this organization until that decision is made where you feel like you have the potential to have a 9, right? And Cam Newton was that. Cam Newton could play at a 10 level sometimes. He would dominate the entire game. He could also play at a 5 level. So you really didn't know a lot of times what Cam was going to get until he had the MVP year where he was at 8 to 9 to 9.5 on every game, and he dominated, right? But you had hope, and you thought that you had a chance to win, and we could beat anybody, and we did until we lost to the Broncos, right? We beat everybody, and we beat them badly. When we played those teams, Seattle, and we played Arizona in the playoffs that year, we didn't just beat them, we dominated them, right? I remember I was at those games, and I was over there throwing ball. It was like Christmas. Everybody gets a ball. And Cam was Oprah, handing them out to the entire stand because he was scoring like that. But we don't have that guy. Well, we don't have that guy in Bryce.
I think what we know with Bryce is this.
He's a 6 at best.
What I would say about Bryce is this. I think that they're in a good spot as far as the fact he'll be entering his 4th year. They can take the 5th year. So he still has low quarterback money. I just read a stat today that out of the 10 playoff teams, only 5 of the highest paid quarterbacks are in the playoffs. 5 of the other highest paid are not. So
they're working on rookie contracts. They're working on,
which is what Bryce will be on. So they're in good shape financially with Bryce right now. I think Bryce is the kind of quarterback, in my opinion, that we are going to have 8s and 9s on defense, 8s and 9s everywhere around him. And if we have that, Bryce is a good enough quarterback to win a lot of games. What he's not is, and you use Cam Newton. With Cam Newton, if he was sailing balls 10 feet over guys' heads, he would also break off a 30-yard run and knock over 3 linebackers and get up and do
first downs and
touch. He had that.
He was an unstoppable force in the
correct. And I'm not saying, I mean, Bryce is a under he doesn't get enough credit for his scrambling ability, but his scrambling is not that.
Right.
He's not taking the ball and going to get a first down. We can't even use
you're not utilizing him as you're not utilizing him as a weapon,
right?
To create offense so that the defense has to prepare.
Right. And
what he does is he improvises and keeps plays alive.
Keeps them alive.
That's why that's one of the big reasons why he's a starting quarterback in this league, because all the other factors are really not much.
But I do think that if you look at the Panthers when Dan took it over, there was holes everywhere. And then after his first season, there was less holes. And this year there's that. So I think that if we have another good offseason, but you're right.
We'll have a winning season next year, make playoffs.
I don't.
But eventually it comes down to this, right? When all things are equal, there's going to be one position that touches the ball every single play.
Right.
And he's playing against Josh Allen. He's playing against Lamar Jackson.
That's where you have to have a hell of a defense.
He's playing against, these elite quarterbacks that are out there wheeling and dealing, because they're playing at the top of the game. They're playing against Matt Stafford, who has 43 touchdowns in a season with 2 receivers everywhere. You have to match that.
Yeah, well,
if you can't match that, you can't win.
And that's why
everything else is equal.
That's why I was saying that having Bryce for the next 2 years on rookie contract and the extension also gives the Panthers time to figure out if he's not the guy, figure out who the replacement is, because that's what pisses me off when people say, get Bryce out of here. I'm like, okay, well, you can put Andy Dalton in there. Are you going to draft the guy with your first round pick, which is going to be around the 23rd spot? I mean, I would be fine with them taking a quarterback in the 3rd round, maybe, if they think somebody they see there has potential. I definitely wouldn't take anybody under 6'2". I would never do that. But my point is that gives them 2 years to find a guy if Bryce isn't the guy. And by the way, Dan and Canals know if he's a guy or not, right? Like, they know either, yep.
I have a feeling they probably view him the same way I do. And he's a good player, not a great player.
Yeah.
He's a manager. He's all the things you want in your daughter's boyfriend. He's all of those things. He's nice. He's polite. He's respectful. He's gonna be a good, but he's not 6'5".
Right. Well,
he's not. He doesn't have a cannon.
And I think that if they fill these holes, especially on defense, I think that you can win games with Bryce Young, and then in the next 2 years, you figure out who his replacement is, because there's nobody in free agency. You don't want Kyler Murray. You don't want Tua. And both those teams made the mistake of giving those guys huge contracts before the rookie deal come out. I don't see the Panthers doing that, especially not with Tillis. So I think they'll be in a fiscally good spot. So they've got 2 years to figure it out. And if they fix those holes on defense, and if they add another good receiver, then I think this team can be a playoff team.
Yeah, they can be a 9-10 win team. If they continue to improve and get some.
And next year
that can cover, and the young players that we've drafted start improving.
No question.
Continue to improve.
No question. So I guess what I'm saying is, regardless of what happens this week, I'm glad we're in this game, but I want the fans to not lose lose focus on
this
the
doesn't feel to me like we are sending the great 500 out to slaughter,
right?
Or the 300,
right?
We're not sending the 300 out to slaughter to battle Xerxes. Like,
right?
Who are the teams in playoffs that that were the teams that had to play Ole Miss and Oregon?
Oh no, you're talking about TCU and Tulane and JMU
and JMU.
Yeah,
this isn't the feel of. The Panthers aren't JMU,
right? And they're going to fight, and that's what I like about this team. I mean, they do fight. Like, I think what I guess I'm saying is, I think especially on defense, they're squeezing as much out of the juice, as much juice out of it as they can. Our defensive coordinator cannot make our linebackers all of a sudden cover tight ends, and they can't make our defensive line. How many sack opportunities do we miss against Tampa? I mean, Baker Mayfield looked like Michael Vick back there, and I know Baker's a good scrambling quarterback, but my God, we had him in our hands and our grasp and couldn't get him down. So we've got holes to fill, but I think we're on the right track. So, I look at this as another step, regardless of what happens, of the building block. And Bryce is definitely a question mark that they're going to have to figure out, but they'll have 2 years on a low contract comparable to other quarterbacks to fill these holes. And look, Dan Morgan comes from Seattle. What was Seattle's model? You got to win when you don't have to pay all these dudes money, right? And we see with Cincinnati's offense can score on anybody, but that's where all their money is, and they can't stop anybody. So you have to have a mix of that. And our best receiver is a rookie. Our quarterback, third year. Our best defensive end right now, a rookie. Derek Brown's under a contract, still young.
Here's what my biggest fear is. Let me tell you, my biggest fear is becoming who? The Pittsburgh Steelers. And I'm not talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers with Ben Roethlisberger,
right,
or the Pittsburgh Steelers with Terry Bradshaw,
right,
or the Pittsburgh Steelers with Jerome Bettis and, guys that could just go out there and dominate all over. I'm talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers with Mike Tomlin. We make the playoffs every year and you lose.
Yeah.
First game.
Yeah.
You make the playoffs every year and you lose first game. Great. Steelers last night won. They beat the Ravens. Aaron Rodgers was Aaron Rodgers for the fourth quarter.
The last 8 minutes of that game was incredible.
He became the young Aaron Rodgers again, and had a fortuitous miss with poor Lamar Jackson. I mean, the last 3 years he's just been getting
his teammates have let him down.
Been let down.
Yeah, because
he's played well enough to win in those games. But the Steelers are going to make the playoffs and be early exit, right? Because they don't have the other 9s and 10s.
They're older, and I saw a thing today about the teams that have the most free agents, and they were the teams that you would guess. Redskins have 30 of them. Guess who one of the oldest teams in the NFL are? Redskins. Steelers have 24. Guess who one of the older teams in the NFL are? The Steelers.
But that's my
You look
fear.
at Philadelphia, they're the second youngest team in the NFL, and they're loaded.
My fear is that we get a quarterback in Bryce that is going to be maybe not as old as Aaron Rodgers, but only about as good as
you're
Aaron
saying.
Rodgers
That you think that good Bryce, which we've seen, Bryce is a good quarterback, but you think his ceiling is going to be first or second round player. Right. And I don't necessarily disagree with you, unless the only way I see it getting better than that is if we have a hell of a defense, and if we have to have great players around him and let him go 15 for 20.
But eventually, DJ, you play the quarterbacks.
Well, eventually the quarterback,
Patrick Mahomes, that are still going to be around. You're going to have the Josh Allens. You're going to have, and now you have the young ones coming up. You have the Drake Mays that you're going to have to beat and compete against. You have the Justin Herberts that you're going to have to beat and compete against. Even
Chuck at New Orleans. Look, that coaching staff has done a hell of a job.
He's not. I mean,
I'm not saying he's Mahomes. What I'm saying though is he looks to be somebody that he beat us twice already. So
slow down.
My point is he's somebody in our division we're going to have to deal with.
Yeah.
So I don't disagree with what you're saying. I'm just saying that they got 2 years to figure it out.
Winning our division isn't the goal. I mean, that's
it's a step into where you want to go.
If we win the division every year, just like the Steelers do, and they get knocked out of the first round, just like the Steelers do, is that who you want to be?
No, you want to win Super Bowls.
So in order to do that, you have to get those other places. Then you're gonna have to make a trade with Bryce,
or they're going to draft somebody,
get lucky in the draft in the second round, third round. Hopefully, an Aaron Rodgers falls and somebody there in the second round, a Jalen Hurts, and you just find lightning in a bottle.
Trade back in the first round like the Giants did to get Jackson Dart. So there are ways to do it, but and luckily the Panthers, like I said, they have a lot of draft capital and they have flexibility financially, which for years and years the Panthers had no. I mean, remember they were one of the worst cap teams in the league.
What Fitterer has and Rule destroyed this program for 5-6 years. They put us behind the 8 ball where we had the worst offensive line.
Well, and even before the year, our salary cap was a disaster. So, my I don't want to go to the playoffs because I know we don't have much time. I want to go to the college playoffs. But my only point is that regardless of what happens Saturday, the future looks brighter. So hang in there. One more offseason. I think we're going to be a lot better next year. We got the money. We got the draft picks. Now, let's go to Thursday night, which, by the way, for everyone watching out there, if you like to partake in beverages like Frank and I both do.
What happened Thursday?
Well, I'm talking about this coming Thursday.
Oh.
I've already talked to a few buddies today, and I'm like, listen, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday this week, pace yourself. Because Thursday night, you got Miami and Ole Miss. Friday night, you got Indiana and Oregon. And then Saturday at 4:30, you got the Panthers and the Bears, Green Bay. I mean, loaded 4 or 5 days of football. So take it easy on your liver Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Or if you're like me and you have a spare one in the closet, just switch them out on Thursday. But what a hell of a 4-day run we're going to have in football. Thursday night, Miami -3.5 at Ole Miss. We just saw Ole Miss with a hell of a game against Georgia. Chambliss looks. I heard. I don't know if it was Howie Long or one of the analysts the other day said if Chambliss was 6'2", everyone would unanimously saying he's the first pick in the draft this year. But he's not. He's 6 foot. He's Bryce's size. But my God,
whoa!
All right, he might have it. Yeah,
Bryce is. He's 3 inches taller.
He may have an inch, but my point is, for quarterback standards, he's small. But my God, watching that game this weekend was as close to a Patrick Mahomes, performance that I've seen. I mean, he had the one scramble with the underhand throw. I mean, he was making throws everywhere. By the way, Ole Miss just re-signed him for next year as long as he gets a medical clearance for year 6. So he'll stay there if he can play. But what a player he is. And then Miami, I went back and looked at notes from the first 2 shows that we did at the beginning of the year when Miami beat Notre Dame at the last minute.
What did I say about them?
Well, it was the second game too.
What did I say?
Well, that's what I'm
Notre
saying.
Dame.
No, that was the first game. The second game, they beat somebody good, too. I don't remember who it was. Might have been Florida, who we thought was going to be good. Anyway, my point is, I remember us talking about how their offensive and defensive lines were NFL players. And
I said this. I remember exactly what I said about their defense. I said, this defense is every bit as good. This defensive line is every bit as good as the defensive lines they've had to dominate and win championships.
Yep. And
this team could be a sleeper and a surprise team. Well, don't be surprised if Miami makes the playoffs.
I think that after their second or third win, you and I both had them ranked number 1, our best team. Then they went through some lulls, right? They lost to Louisville, lost to SMU, but
Carson Beck, sloughed
4 interceptions against Louisville. But the lights came back on. There was controversy about that getting in the playoffs, so I think their coach did a hell of a job of using that as a chip because we heard their players talking about it.
Cristobal.
Yeah, Cristobal. And so the lights are on, and Miami is playing like Miami did the first 2 games, and now they're running into an Ole Miss team who all the controversy they've been through with their coach leaving and all the talk that's been around that, they have bonded. And they've got a quarterback that makes plays, and they got a beast at running back in Lacey, and they've got receivers that are fast as frisbee catching dogs. I can't wait to watch this game. And the fact that Miami's a 3.5 point favorite kind of surprised me. Like I thought it'd be under a field goal. I thought Miami would probably be a favorite, maybe by 2. But you're looking at an Ole Miss team that beat Georgia, who a lot of people had winning the whole thing. They had a 9-point lead against Georgia in Athens during the season, blew it. They got a damn good football team, and I love their new coach. Like you talking about a dude that, number 1, cusses more than you and I do. He don't give a damn. And for a dude that's only been the head coach for about 3 weeks, this team loves him, and they're rallying. And he's I don't know if you saw a couple plays where he went nuts on the sideline on his players, and they had a basketball goal that Lane Kiffin had. So when they made a good play, they dunked the ball. He got rid of that crap. Now they have like a chain or whatever. He's like, we're not doing that crap. I like him a lot. So this game to me should be great. But Miami -3.5 on Thursday night at 7:30. We're gonna make that pick now because we're not on until Friday again.
Well, I mean, Charlie Weiss Jr. is going to be a big decision. I'm not sure.
He came out today and said that he's not going to the NFL and he's going to LSU, but he's finishing the job here.
So they're going to LSU is going to allow him.
Yeah, he's coaching.
On his contract, that was the deal, right?
They thought he was going to have to leave after that last game.
After the last game was his last game that he was going to coach.
Now they're staying.
They're going to. Yeah, it's a big plus
huge
for Ole Miss because he's been, the brain behind this offense.
Well, Golden, their head coach, kind of threw Lane Kiffin on the bus. He goes, listen, everybody thinks that Lane was the play caller for this offense. No. Charlie Weiss Jr. is the play caller for this offense.
Let me tell you, I mean, yeah, and I've told you this on multiple fronts with head coaches, right? Head coaches that we're blaming for the play calls or blaming for this, where they make final decisions. The play call happens with a bunch of guys up in a booth that are looking and scouting to see what they've done, what their tendencies are. They as the play is going on, they're looking through their plays and seeing which is going to be the next play. That's Charlie Weiss. He's the orchestrator. He's the one that's, directing the band on the field with the offense. Lane Kiffin's the one that can pull the lights off and say, no, we're not doing that shit. We're going to do this. No, we're going to not do that. We're going to do this. And he has ears on everything that's being said. So
he can overrule if he wants to.
He can overrule, but he's like this. And sometimes he even advises or makes suggestions to Charlie Weiss, and they work together to come up with a play. That's the way offense is called, and at every level, high school, college, or pro. High school might be a little different because it's not as schematically advanced and things like that, or there's not many defenses that you're going to see. So a little bit more probably advanced in college, especially at this level when you're getting to this stage, and definitely more in the pros. But that's why I was asking about, is he going to be there?
Today he's there.
So that means that Chambliss is going to have his guy, right? His earpiece, the guy that's talking to him and making those decisions, when it comes to what do we do? What's the plays? What's your favorite plays? I know your strengths. I know your weaknesses.
What calls to do on 3rd and 8?
That's already all there.
Yep.
And because of that, I think Ole Miss athletically can keep up with anybody. And he's a guy that can neutralize Miami's off defensive line, right? When you look at guys that have Miami has struggled with, it's the guys that scatter and move around because it forces them to stay in an alley, in a lane. They have to stay in their passing lane, or else this guy can expose you and make you look stupid. He can expose the defense and make them look bad. Miami's speed on the defense is incredible.
Their 2 defensive ends are nuts.
They're incredible.
Yeah.
But if I know that a guy can escape and outrun you because he's more athletic, I have to stay in my lane rushing upfield. I can, even though I see that alley in that lane where I can dart inside and beat this tackle and get back. If I do it against this guy, he's gone, right? So their discipline on the defensive line is what's going to slow them down, right? It doesn't mean that they still aren't capable of doing things, and I expect a lot of twists and things of that nature to try to get to Chambliss, but at the end of the day, if he goes out there and continues to play at the level he's playing, it's going to be a long day for Miami, because I don't think Carson Beck is that level of athlete. And I also think this about Carson Beck is that when things get down, he tries to press and become the guy, because he's the guy that they paid to do that for.
Well, here's what I'll say. And then Friday night we have Indiana and Oregon, which I know you're excited about, being an Oregon fan. We'll talk about that Friday. So
I'm an Indiana fan now.
Well,
Indiana's the best team in college football.
They are. And let me tell you.
And I hate that this matchup's happening now.
You were talking about quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And you were talking about the Josh Allens and the Pat Mahomes. If you look at the 4 quarterbacks that are left, I think we would all probably say Mendoza number 1, Heisman winner. But then you've got Chambliss, you've got Dante Moore at Oregon, who's a stud.
We probably might get drafted higher than
correct. I mean,
right?
they're saying
they're 1 and 2.
They're saying that
if he comes out,
they're saying, I read an article this morning saying that his people are reaching out to the Raiders and saying, if you're taking me first, I'm coming out. If you're not, I'm not, because I'm not going to the Jets.
Yep.
So you've got 3 quarterbacks in this, and Carson Beck, who is a good quarterback, but he's the 4th quarterback. So if you go off quarterback play, that Miami's got the worst one. So all these games.
Here's the other thing that I know we're getting off, talking about a game that we're going to talk about on Friday, but I mean, Indiana is getting no love with what they do up front.
People still don't believe in them,
buddy,
which is amazing.
When I stood and watched Oregon come into the Georgia Dome a couple years ago, and you see guys like Jordan Davis getting off the bus for Georgia, and you see the guys from Oregon looks like, the pudgy little guys, and they have some good looking athletes. They're lean, they're fast. But when you see Georgia coming off the bus, I mean, you guys, it's like you've gone to Jurassic Park.
Yeah, the big dudes.
These
NFL prospects everywhere.
These creatures are humongous.
Yeah.
And they have them, they breed them at Georgia. They have them all over the place.
Yeah.
This team is humongous. They're big, they're fast, they're physical. They got pushed around by Indiana.
Yeah.
They got beat up
Right,
in the trenches. The center for Indiana is as good a center as you're going to find in college.
Yep.
He might be 32 years old and won 4 missions, but I mean, these guys can flat out play up front. He got the offensive line. The offensive line. He got the offensive player of the MVP for that game. Because
which you never see.
You never see that.
Never see it.
So this front for Indiana, they dominate up front. They dominate as a group up front.
They do. And listen, you and I have argued all year about I haven't been impressed with Oregon's defense. I think they're good. I think they're improved from last year, but I don't think they're at the level they need to be to win a shit. But I'll tell you what, last week, if they play like they did against Texas Tech, and you and I have talked about having the 4-week buys, how it might hurt a team, but I don't care. Oregon's defense last week played unbelievable. And to shut that team out, who was winning every game by an average of 21 points, and to shut them out, you're doing something right. But you're right. Indiana is a different league.
Oregon's athletes, they're young players, they're 19, 20-year-old kids, can play with anybody. Where they struggle at times and have struggled at times, just like Notre Dame in the past has struggled at times, is with who? The grown men up front. The 25, 26-year-old grown men.
Which Indiana has several.
Several. It's the reason why that's their loss, right? When they played, ultimately the body blows started wearing out, and Dante Moore was behind, got a tip pass, interception. It was a 3-point game until the fourth quarter. It was a 3-point game.
Very good game.
And they made Fernando Mendoza look like a normal person, not some Superman. They had an interception for a touchdown against them in that game, Oregon did against Indiana. They can play with anybody athletically. And that's why I wasn't really concerned when they were taking on Texas Tech, because athlete-wise, they're going to match up and maybe be better than anybody in the country. But when it comes to the grown man, if Texas Tech was going to do anything, that's where they were going to do it. They were going to have to do it up front. And Oregon's defense, their front four, their front seven, their linebackers, they look like two poor man Luke Kuechly's.
They're fast.
They play downhill, and they're in a bad mood when they get there. If they can keep guys off of those guys with that secondary, they have a chance to beat anybody.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, when you have a defense that's got more than 2 Samoans on it, they're going to bring it. Because and those two, I forget their names, but I know that one defensive end is the defensive coach's son or line's son, and then the linebacker, you're talking number 44. They bring it. So we got a great weekend of football. We'll be back Friday. We'll talk more about the Indiana-Oregon game. We'll recap the Miami-Ole Miss game. And then obviously we'll dive a lot further into not only the Panther-Ram game, but we've got a bunch of great matchups in the NFL playoffs with the Bears hosting Green Bay.
We might even come up with our brackets on who we expect to make it, right? But have an 8-man bracket.
Let's do it.
Come up with teams. Continue our bet.
Because I've got some upsets already. I'm going to say for Friday, but I see some upsets that I'm going to be all over. So we'll be back with you Friday. Have a good week. Like I said, pace yourself. Keep your liver fresh. You got 4 days of a heavy run. So have a good Monday through Thursday. We'll see you Friday.